Trump signed executive orders to release full, unredacted, if I understand the reading of it, the last of the JFK, RFK, and MLK files. I want to go to Kristen first. What's your level of optimism that this is that we're going to actually see anything here? Do you think that we're actually going to get anything of value here, or is this more ceremonial?
Well, I think normally I'd be a little bit pessimistic, but all the winning that we've been seeing, I hope that these files are released, but they're not laced with like black lines through them. And I think it's important. I think Trump recognizes after getting the libertarians to cross over, he's got to follow through with these promises. We've talked about the deep state. Who are these people? But it's more of like the internal government cover-ups. And he's going to get more people to believe in voting, to believe in government again, that can stop some of the bleeding. And what this is to me is the AED back in the belief of supporting campaign promises. So what I'm getting at is by him exposing this, he's looking down the line of getting people to believe promises that will be made in the next 2026, 2028, and so on. So I do think it's going to come out. And I think there's a lot of backdoor promises that were made that I have heard of. I think we're going to see it.
What do you think, Luke?
Jeremy, let's go back. Let's go into the history of this. Because if you remember, during Trump's first administration, he specifically said, I'm going to release the JFK files. I'm going to release them. I'm going to release them. I'm going to release them. The CIA came in and said, no, you're not. And then Donald Trump was like, okay, I won't. And he did it. He released some of them. But then there's still a large amount of them that are redacted. Now, what's going to be in the redacted papers?
13,000 pages, I think he did release. Yeah.
He released some of them, but not all of them, right? Still, with leaving this kind of thing in our mind being like, what's really going on here? Hold on, wait a minute. Why is the government still keeping these documents secret for so long? So I think this has festered in the minds of a lot of kind of conspiracy theorists. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a nothing burger and it was a government just psyop messing with us the whole time, just to like screw us over. But at the same time, it does make you wonder, why so much secrecy? Why so much classifications? Why for so long we don't know the larger kind of intimate details to what happened to our own president, as our own government is being secretive about it? That right there is a red flag. And I think there's a potential for larger disclosures, but I think the story here has already been told. It's been told very brilliantly by Oliver Stone, that had released a movie about this, detailing the larger kind of questions about what's really going on here. We know RFK Jr.'s father, same thing. The argument has been made in the public arena that absolutely inside job. You look at MLK. Also, there was a court proceeding with Dr. William Pepper, someone I knew, someone I interviewed, who was the lawyer for MLK's family. And I interviewed Dr. William Pepper. He passed away last year, sadly. I just found out about this. He was also a big pioneer for 9/11 Truth, and he was a great guy. But he came out and represented the family in a court proceedings where the court proceedings find out that the government was involved in a conspiracy to take the life of MLK. So all of those stories don't add up. All of those stories automatically in the minds of the American people are, the government killed all these people because they did. That's the larger kind of, we don't need a disclosure for that. But now having the documents kind of released here, it could be the cherry on the top of what a lot of Americans already knew.
By the way, for those of you that don't know Kristen, she's an Air Force vet, whistleblower, and a content or contributor. You've been making the rounds, right? You're on We Are Change often. Tell the people a little bit about who you are, and just so they know your bona fide kind of, so to speak, here.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. So I spent 9 years on active duty, blew the whistle on weather modification 16 years ago. Luke was one of the first interviews I did. I've been a contributor for Alex Jones. I'm an exposure scientist. So I've been exposing fluoride in the water, defeating the mandates all the way to the Supreme Court across the country, and had a hand in the response, exposing the improper response and suing the EPA involving the East Palestine situation. So I am a occupational environmental toxicology realm is where I work, but I also am very much in the liberty movement. That's how I've known Luke for a million years. Watched, he grows up so fast. But I just try to use my power for good, and I'm connected a lot in media and just try to, advance liberty. And as you can see, Stuart Rhodes is a very close friend of mine, and I was one of his few friends who did not delete their pictures once he was put in a cage. So
You can follow Kristen over on X at Kristen Meghan, Meghan. Am I saying it right? Is it Meghan or Megan?
It's Meghan, but if you really want to be even more scared, I have 3 first names: Kristen, Meghan, Kelly. So you really can't trust me.
Stay away. She's don't date her. She might be a great source for
people
news,
with 3 names are a little sus in my book there. Just a heads up. And for the record, I still haven't grown up.
Yeah, that is true. I can't confirm that. Kristen, thanks for joining us today. Your military expertise is going to come up later too.
And Kristen doesn't get mad when I call her Kristen, by the way. And she does have 3 names. So
that's are you trying to compare her to Hannah Claire Brimlow right now?
You mean Hannah?
You can't talk ish about other coasts when they're not here to defend themselves.
I'm not talking ish. I'm talking the truth. Talking the truth is not talking ish.
So, like, don't talk about her like she's not here.
Yeah. So what do you think? I don't know how familiar you both are. I assume more than me. So most people kind of know, are at least warmed up to the idea that something doesn't add up with JFK. But what are the larger? I don't think as many people are as informed on kind of the RFK/MLK stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that the government put out about MLK too that some people question. There were some documents surfacing or floating on the internet last night. He liked his group get-togethers, his adult parties, all this kind of stuff. And I think at a time right now where, Kristen, you mentioned earlier, Trump releasing this stuff is important to set the scene for regaining any level of trust, because I would assume, just through sheer randomness, that the government is right sometimes. But I think most people's most people's default settings are that they're lying or that it's untrue. What are either of you familiar with kind of the bigger stuff with Bobby Kennedy?
Yes.
What are we looking for in those documents?
So it specifically details about Sirhan Sirhan, the assassin. His lawyer argued that he was literally hypnotized and brainwashed. That was the argument specifically about that legal case.
MK Ultra?
Yeah, probably. Absolutely. If we're going to be speculating here, as of course, it's also important to note that the firearm that he used in the assassination of RFK only had 8 bullets. That were, it was an 8-bullet capacity weapon, but there were 13 shots fired. How is that possible? So RFK Jr.'s is even arguing himself today that Sirhan didn't kill his father. So this is something that RFK Jr. is even publicly speaking about. So that is another kind of important aspect here to remember here. As of course Sirhan says he has no memory of even of assassinating RFK Jr. So something's up here. Clearly, there's a larger potential for some kind of, MK Ultra like mind control project that hijacked his mind, or set him up in a way where he was the ultimate patsy here.
Kristen,
I can relate to that because I actually have been through a situation where I didn't remember ever actually marrying my ex-husband. No, I'm just kidding.
That's different, I think. Although trauma could be both, it could be related to both. The brain does work in mysterious
It's called trauma-based mind control for a reason. And they create trauma, split your personalities, and build up the second personality. And they use trigger words in order to activate that second personality. That could be, of course, that assassin that they use. That's what we know about the little that we do about this MK Ultra program.
Well, when you talk about the Kennedy assassination, does everyone remember the TV show that Ventura had? I forgot what it was called, but it was on True TV. I remember they recreated the scene and the trajectory, and it was like not possible. So I think those little situations, although it doesn't cover like a whole complex investigation, is enough to go, the narrative falls flat on its face based on what we were told.
And I think it's pretty obvious. So one of the prevailing theories around JFK is that he had spoken out against certain organizations that had a lot of power in the U.S. government, and that he didn't want them to be involved in the U.S. government, and then that's why he disappeared. There's a lot of I don't want to give chat the fuel to start. It's too early in the day to be going down that road.
Oy vey.
Yeah, I'm not noticing before noon, but But with MLK too, it's pretty obvious. Like he had to be a target, right? Like this guy, in the civil rights movement, whatever he did in his spare time, by the way, true or not, I don't really care. Like if he was having his little, freak off parties. I don't really care. Like, what I care about is there any evidence that's going to be released in these files that prove conclusively? It's kind of like when everyone's like, oh, Trump's going to release Jeffrey's list. I'm like, I don't care about the list. I care about the thousands of tapes and hard drives that actually contain real evidence. Your name as having visited that island actually doesn't prove anything. Now, you might catch a few hypocrites who said I wasn't there and then their name's on a list, but it doesn't actually prove that they engage in any kind of nefarious behavior. So I'm hoping that I'm cautiously sort of optimistic. I think I'm ODing on white pills because this week's been so crazy. I'm like cautiously optimistic. Give me something in one of the three. JFK, I think, would be the easiest one if they were going to say, all right, we'll make a concession. Like, they could just say, oh, well, yeah, rogue elements in the government, did this. They're all dead coincidentally now, or they don't. It'll be interesting to see. Now, Trump did give them 15 days to, I think, probably decide what they want to release and what they want to accidentally lose. But it'll be interesting to see. I'm most interested in probably Bobby Kennedy or MLK, because JFK, I kind of basically already am convinced, what happened there. There's little to be argued there. But shout out to, what do you guys make of his grandson, Bobby Kennedy's grandson, who's never met him, having a hissy fit about these files getting released? He's a lawyer, a liberal journalist. And he's like, well, you're just using my grandfather for clout, even though he never met him. It seems a little odd.
Yeah.
It seems odd. I feel like I'd want that out.
They might have some, extortion on him as, you would want to know, hey, what kind of secret documents do they have on my loved ones, on my family members? Why wouldn't you want to know what really happened with your relatives? I mean, this is something that, of course, Bobby Kennedy has been coming out. When he was on Timcast, we had a long conversation and we asked him directly, like, hey, who do you think took the life of your father and your uncle? Automatically, he was like, yeah, it was the government. So this is important to note here, because the evidence is overwhelming. There are so many things that are just secretive, that are just shadowy, that just don't add up, don't make sense. There's an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence proving that the government was involved here one way or another, either when it comes to executing it or covering it up or benefiting off of it. There were so many different things at play here that everyone's just waiting for that final proof to come out. Will this be the final proof? I don't know, but we've been waiting for it. And, if the government did assassinate him, I don't think the government would write in their own documents, hey, guys, we did this.
That's what I think, too. That's what I think, too. It's like, Dear Diary, today we
popped off RFK Jr. And
I think there's a different angle. I think there's a different angle here because, first of all, I wonder how many manila folders that guy would be presented with. But there's people that are just have such the Trump derangement syndrome. They don't want any form of winning, even if it benefits them. So if you think about the fact that he's trying to completely overhaul the FBI and CIA, if there is actually data that's more than a nothing burger that shows it was from the government, which I believe, do you get what I'm saying? It really it gives credibility to why Trump had to clean house and completely change course of the ship. And I think you can't argue that if what we think happens is going to happen.
And a lot of the people involved in this, in particular with MLK, almost all of them would have passed on by now. So they could throw a couple patsies out there to like, there is some possibility that we get some admission here. It'll be interesting to see, how far that goes, but I guess we'll know. I mean, we'll see. I want to kind of wrap that segment there if I can, and just kind of remind everyone who we're joined by Luke Rudkowski today, my Friday regular co-host.
Best co-host you've ever had, you ever will have.
I mean, Kristen's doing pretty good so far. And then Kristen, Meghan as well, joining us today as special guest on Friday. What do you you think that this opens up the door now to Epstein? Because Trump has said, I actually do. Now, maybe I have reverse TDS. I'm not one of those people that thinks every mistake Trump ever makes is fifth dimensional chess. I criticize him when I think he needs to be criticized. He's already made a couple of questionable decisions in 5 days. It's just I let it slide because he's made 100 awesome ones. I do believe that Trump had nothing to do with Epstein Island. I really believe he's clean. I believe if they had anything, it would have come out in 2016. If they had anything, again, it would have come out in 2020. I'm sorry, or 2024. They've had 12 years to accidentally leak that. They have nothing on him with Epstein Island.